Imagine a man held together entirely by corsets and wigs and false teeth, and he even has a fake leg.
Right, just a completely artificial person.
Yeah, exactly. And then imagine this guy is being convinced by his own family that his entire life is, just a hallucination.
Which sounds like a modern thriller, honestly.
It really does. But this bizarre, honestly terrifying scenario wasn't written yesterday. It was written way back in 1859.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to expose the ruthless mechanics of gossip and office politics and social power. So today we are doing a deep dive into Fyodor Dostoevsky's Uncle's Dream, or as it's titled in some of the Arabic literary analyses we're pulling from today, You Do.
And it is just a phenomenal text for us to unpack today, mostly because, it catches people completely off guard.
How so?
Well, when you hear the name Fyodor Dostoevsky, you immediately brace yourself for something incredibly dense.
Right, like heavy existential agony.
Exactly. You think of immense guilt, you think of characters starving in freezing garrets, debating the existence of God for like 400 pages straight.
Yeah, you think of Crime and Punishment or the Brothers Karamazov, just like the heaviest stuff imaginable.
But the context surrounding this specific novella, it completely flips that expectation on its head.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Dostoevsky actually wrote Uncle's Dream while he was in exile in Siberia.
Right.
He had just served this brutal prison sentence. We were talking hard labor, freezing conditions, just this absolute depths of human misery.
The worst of the worst.
And you'd think coming out of an experience like that, his writing would be, darker than ever.
You really would.
But instead, this book acts almost like a psychological pressure valve for him.
Yeah, it marks a really fascinating, subtle shift in his approach to human psychology.
Because he's not just writing about misery anymore.
No, exactly.
Right.
Rather than diving right back into the theology of suffering, he turns his lens outward. He looks at society.
And he uses comedy to do it, right?
He does. He uses sharp satire, biting social commentary, and this incredibly dark theatrical humor.
Which is so unexpected for him.
It really is. It's as if he realized that, physical prisons in Siberia were only one kind of cage.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
He wanted to dissect a completely different and perhaps even more insidious kind of prison. The prison of high society, etiquette, and reputation.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We aren't just here to summarize a 19th century Russian soap opera about a provincial town called Mordassov.
Right, we're going much deeper than that.
Exactly. We want to use this story to pull apart the philosophical duality of human nature.
The masks we all wear.
Yes. We're going to examine those masks, the predatory nature of social power, and this really profound tension between truth and illusion.
Because Dostoevsky is basically using comedy as a Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse for what?
To smuggle in some deeply unsettling questions about who we really are when no one is looking.
Yeah, the comedy totally disarms you as the reader. You find yourself laughing at the absurdity of these provincial aristocrats, and then bam.
Right, suddenly you realize he's holding up a mirror to the very social games we are all still playing today.
Which means we absolutely have to start with the architect of all the chaos in this town.
Oh, we have to.
Because every social ecosystem has its apex predator,
Yeah.
And in Mordassov, her name is Maria Alexandrovna.
Maria Alexandrovna is just a terrifying force of nature.
Terrifying is the right word?
If the town of Mordassov is a chessboard, she is not merely the queen piece, she is the grandmaster who built the board itself.
And she dictates all the rules of engagement.
Exactly. Dostoevsky establishes her early on as the most prominent, the most respected, and without question, the most feared woman in the entire region.
Let's talk about how she actually maintains that fear, though. Because it is brilliantly insidious.
It's definitely not through physical intimidation.
No, not at all. And it's not even through overt wealth. It's through the weaponization of information.
Yes.
Dostoevsky writes that she absolutely thrives on gossip. She is like a black hole for the town's secrets.
She literally cannot sleep if she hasn't uncovered some new, scandalous piece of dirt on someone.
But her real genius is the facade she puts over it. She acts as though she is entirely, completely above gossip.
And that is the core of her methodology. She cultivates this aura of high-minded nobility.
Right.
When she holds court in her drawing room, people literally tremble. They act like anxious schoolchildren, terrified of making a misstep in front of a strict headmaster.
Because she insists that all conversation in her presence must be elevated and sophisticated and pure.
Exactly. But beneath that veneer of extreme propriety, she is meticulously archiving everyone's dirty laundry.
Like that amazing detail with her main social rival, Natalia. Dostoevsky introduces this incredible little fact.
Oh, the sugar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maria knows for an absolute certainty that Natalia secretly steals sugar.
Which is so petty.
It's incredibly petty. It's embarrassing. It's not exactly a state secret or anything. But Maria doesn't just broadcast it.
No, she doesn't tell everyone immediately.
She hoards that secret in her vault.
Yeah.
She just waits.
And that waiting is where we transition from basic social climbing into some really deep philosophical territory.
Let's get into it.
If we analyze Maria through a philosophical lens, she's the perfect, terrifying embodiment of what Friedrich Nietzsche would later call the will to power.
The will to power. Okay, unpack that for us a bit.
So Nietzsche argued that the fundamental driving force in human beings isn't just the desire to survive,
Right.
or even the desire to be happy. It is the drive to exert one's will onto the world, to achieve ambition, to reach the highest possible position of influence and dominance.
So she isn't just like participating in her society. She is completely orchestrating reality for everyone else to make sure she stays on top.
Precisely. To Maria, other human beings do not possess autonomous agency.
They aren't even people to her.
No, they are inanimate game pieces. They exist solely in relation to her ambitions.
Just tools.
Right. Tools to be moved, sacrificed, or completely discarded the moment they cease to elevate her.
It reminds me of a modern-day corporate PR crisis manager. Or honestly, maybe an old-school mob boss.
A mob boss is a great analogy.
Because she rules through the paralyzing weight of implied threats. She never actually has to drop the hammer.
Right. Just knowing that she could drop the hammer is what keeps everyone in line.
Exactly. She knows you steal sugar. You know she knows you steal sugar.
And that unspoken tension is everything.
Yes. That invisible tension is what forces you to smile and nod at her dinner parties. And she doesn't just do this to her rival, she does this to her own family.
Oh, her poor husband.
Right, look at her husband, Afanasy.
Afanasy is the ultimate discarded game piece.
Dostoevsky's description of this guy is just hilariously tragic. He is completely, utterly useless to Maria's grand ambitions.
He really is.
Sees this guy with a foolish appearance who, whenever the pressure is on, he just completely loses his head and babbles inappropriately.
Which, in the high-stakes, cutthroat environment of a social dinner, makes him a massive liability.
So what does Maria do? What is her solution to this problem?
She literally exiles him.
She banishes him to a country estate she owns, about 3 versts away, which is roughly a couple of miles.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. And what does he do out there in exile?
Oh, he has a very busy schedule.
Right. He rules over 120 serfs. He drinks tea 3 times a day. He takes endless baths. And he obsesses over tying his white cravat perfectly.
Just endless vanity.
He just lives in this hermetically sealed bubble of total vanity.
But what's deeply cynical about this arrangement is that Afanasy is perfectly happy.
He has no idea he's been exiled.
None. He doesn't realize he's been discarded. He genuinely enjoys the illusion of his own little fiefdom.
He gets to feel important tying his stupid cravat.
Exactly. He's completely oblivious to the fact that his wife has surgically removed him from her life just because he was politically inconvenient.
But wait, does that mean Dostoevsky is suggesting that this is what high society fundamentally is?
What do you mean?
Like, is all of this polite civilization, all the tea parties and the etiquette, is it just a thin, polite veneer over ruthless, predatory behavior?
That's the big question.
Is Maria just an anomaly? Or is she actually the only one honest enough with herself to play the game to its logical conclusion?
I mean, based on the text, it's heavily implied to be the latter. Maria is simply the apex predator in an ecosystem that actively demands predation.
The poetry readings, the elegant dresses.
The polite bows, it is all just camouflage. Dostoevsky is actively challenging us to look past the aesthetics of civilization.
And you can apply that to today, too.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the environments you navigate in your own life today. Think about modern corporate office politics or even your tight-knit social circles.
Right.
How often is the hierarchy maintained not by merit or kindness, but by the quiet understanding of who holds the secrets?
Oh, yeah.
How often is someone's influence entirely based on their ability to casually destroy someone else's reputation?
It's the absolute weaponization of information. You gather the flaws of others to build your own armor. But if Maria's entire power structure relies on exploiting the very real, authentic flaws of the people around her, The sugar stealing, the inappropriate babbling, what happens to her ecosystem when a completely artificial element is introduced.
Ah, right.
Because a predator of her caliber eventually needs a massive prize to prove her dominance.
She does.
And that brings us to the prince.
Prince K, a character whose mirror rival in Mordassov shifts this entire story from a sharp social satire into a really profound exploration of existentialism.
Existentialism and the concept of the self.
Yes.
Let's lay out who this guy actually is, because Dostoevsky's description of him is just wild.
It's unforgettable.
He is an old man who, in his youth, was staggeringly wealthy. But he was a classic aristocrat, so he wasted his entire fortune on a wild life of reckless romance, singers, and general extravagance.
He went totally, utterly bankrupt.
Right, a very familiar trope in 19th century Russian literature, right?
Yeah.
The hollowed out, decayed nobility.
Exactly. But then he hits the aristocratic lottery.
Out of nowhere.
An old, forgotten relative dies, and suddenly this bankrupt prince inherits a massive estate with 4,000 serfs.
Which is an unimaginable amount of wealth and power back then.
Overnight, he goes from being a forgotten joke to being the most powerful man around.
And as you might expect, the people around him who previously ignored him suddenly take a very, very keen interest in his well-being.
Oh, totally. His relatives, who obviously just want to get their hands on this new fortune, they actually try to have him legally committed to an insane asylum so they can seize control of the estate.
Which is so dark.
It is. But another, more powerful relative intervenes and stops the plot. So now the prince is living in total isolation at his estate.
Under the control of a woman named Stepanida, right?
Yes, under the incredibly strict, almost suffocating control of Stepanida. She acts as a sort of aggressive warden.
She treats him like a child.
She does. The text describes her as this large, domineering woman who treats this wealthy prince like a toddler. She holds the keys, she manages the money, she distracts him with silly things.
And she ensures he doesn't take a single step without her permission.
She isn't protecting him, you see. She is protecting the asset.
Right. But the prince actually manages to slip his leash. He escapes his estate and wanders into Mordassov, and naturally, he ends up staying at the home of Maria Alexandrovna.
Of course he does.
Now here is where Dostoevsky really starts playing with us. The physical description of the prince.
It's bizarre.
He is entirely, fundamentally artificial.
The catalog of his artificial parts is just staggering.
It's like he's been assembled from spare parts. He wears a wig, he has false teeth, he has a glass eye.
And the corset.
Yes, he has to wear a tight corset because his ribs were shattered years ago.
Because he had to jump out of a window to escape a jealous husband during an Italian romance.
Exactly. Right? There is even a prominent rumor in town that his left leg is fake.
A high-quality cork prosthetic he supposedly got in Paris.
Right after another misadventure. And on top of all that, he paints his face with heavy makeup to hide his wrinkles and mimic the flesh of youth.
He is literally held together by springs, glue, and cosmetics.
But it isn't just his physical body that is a patchwork of falsehoods.
No, his mind is deeply, deeply degraded. He stutters, he forgets what he's talking about mid-sentence, he just babbles incoherently.
He's a walking ruin of a human being.
He really is. So what is Dostoevsky doing here? Why paint this grotesque, tragicomic picture of a man who is more prosthetic than person?
Well, I mean, it has to be about identity, right?
Exactly. He is presenting us with a brilliant walking embodiment of a classic philosophical puzzle.
The ship of Theseus.
Yes. Have you ever come across that thought experiment?
Yeah, I have. The idea is that you have a famous wooden ship, right? And over the years, as the planks start to rot, you replace them one by one.
Plank by plank.
Exactly. And eventually you've replaced every single wooden plank, every sail, and every nail.
And then the question is...
once every original part is gone, is it still the same ship?
Exactly. Dostoevsky is presenting us with the human of Theseus.
Oh, I love that.
Think about the profound existential implications here. If a man's hair, his teeth, his eye, his leg, his ribs, his complexion, and increasingly his memory and cognitive functions are no longer his own.
If they're all fabricated or failing.
Right. Where does the self actually reside? Who is the prince, really?
He's not a person anymore. He's just a performance.
He's an illusion of a man.
And politically, he represents the decay of the aristocracy, doesn't he?
Absolutely. He represents the terminal decay of the Russian aristocracy at that time.
Because they were losing their actual relevance.
Right. The nobility was increasingly viewed as a hollowed-out institution. It was surviving purely on inherited wealth, titles, and historical momentum, rather than any actual merit or substance.
So the prince is that political concept made flesh.
Or, made porcelain and cork, as it were.
Right. And what's crucial is that he is held together not just by his corset, but by the desperate illusions of the people around him.
Because everyone around him needs him to be real.
That's the ultimate irony. The townspeople of Mordassov secretly mock him.
They laugh at him behind his back.
For being fake, for being this patched-together dummy, yet they're all morally fake themselves.
Oh, entirely.
They fawn over him,
Yeah.
They invite him to parties, they flatter him, all while internally just completely despising him.
They are wearing masks of politeness and deference that are just as artificial as his glass eye.
They project onto him the reality they need him to have.
Because they worship his 4,000 serfs.
Right.
They pretend he is a dignified, functioning aristocrat because they want his money.
And Maria Alexandrovna, being the grandmaster of this sick game, looks at this artificial, dying, senile man, and she doesn't see a joke.
No.
She doesn't see a tragedy, she sees a golden ticket.
A golden ticket for her daughter. Which brings us to Zina.
Zina is Maria's daughter. She's 23 years old, and the text emphasizes that she is exceptionally beautiful, very proud, and highly educated.
But she has a massive liability hanging over her head.
She does. She is haunted by a scandalous rumor. About 18 months prior, she apparently had a deeply passionate romance with a poor local schoolteacher.
A match that Maria would consider entirely, completely unacceptable.
Because it offers no status, no wealth, no leverage.
Exactly. It was a scandal that Maria had to brilliantly and ruthlessly extinguish.
Dostoevsky introduces this great detail where Maria literally buys back the love letters the teacher was threatening to expose.
She uses cold, hard cash to put out the fire.
Right, before it can burn down Zina's reputation entirely.
But the stain of the rumor remains in the background. Zina is beautiful, but she remains unmarried at 23.
Which, in the rigid social structure of 19th century provincial Russia, was becoming a highly precarious position.
The clock is ticking, and the whispers haven't completely stopped.
So Maria, always the strategist, sits her daughter down and pitches a plan.
A terrifying plan.
She points to the prince. She says, "Look at him. He is old. He's senile. He is literally falling apart in front of us. He is going to die very soon.
You should marry him.
You should marry him." It is a breathtakingly cynical proposition.
And Maria's logic is terrifyingly flawless in its cruelty.
Break it down for us.
She argues that if Zina marries him, she will inherit his vast fortune and his aristocratic title.
Right.
She will become a young, incredibly wealthy, independent widow. And this is the hook Maria uses once Zina has all that power and money.
Yes.
She can turn around and save the poor, dying teacher she actually loves.
She can be his patron.
Exactly. She can be his savior. She can pay for his medical care and marry him on her own terms.
And Zina's initial reaction?
She recoils in utter disgust.
Naturally.
She finds the plan vile, deceitful, and morally bankrupt. The idea of actively manipulating a confused, vulnerable old man into a sham marriage, simply to wait like a vulture for him to die, it's horrifying to her sense of honor.
But wait, hang on. I want to look at the philosophical framework Maria is using to try and break down Zina's resistance here.
Okay, let's do it.
Because on the surface, Maria is using utilitarianism, right?
Yes.
The greatest good for the greatest number. But utilitarianism is usually framed as a positive ethical framework. Like public health policies are utilitarian.
Yeah.
Are you saying Maria genuinely believes she's doing the right thing? Or is she just hijacking a noble philosophy to excuse a horrific act of manipulation?
That is the brilliant tension Dostoevsky creates. Maria is deploying a highly weaponized, corrupted form of utilitarianism.
Weaponized ethics.
Yes. Utilitarian ethics, pioneered by thinkers like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, argue that the morality of an action is determined by its outcome.
The ends justify the means.
Exactly. If an action results in a net positive, if it maximizes well-being, then the action is morally right, regardless of how unsavory the method is.
Okay, I see.
But Maria isn't acting out of genuine altruism. She is hijacking the language of ethics to rationalize her own will to power.
It's like a twisted 19th century Russian version of the trolley problem.
That is exactly what it is.
In the classic trolley problem, you have a runaway train about to hit 5 people, but you can pull a lever to divert it onto a track where it will only hit one person.
Right.
Do you commit a terrible act actively choosing to cause the death of one person to achieve a greater good? Saving 5?
And Maria is standing at the lever.
She really is. She is telling Zina, yes, we are going to deceive and use this old man. We are going to treat him as a means to an end. But he is basically dead anyway.
And by pulling this lever, we secure our family's future, we restore your honor, and most importantly, we save the life of the man you truly love.
And she doesn't stop there, does she?
No, Maria pushes the manipulation even further. She begins to actively gaslight Zina into believing that this deception isn't just a necessary evil, but an actively noble, virtuous sacrifice.
She twists the narrative.
She twists it until Zina, marrying the prince, is framed as an act of selfless martyrdom.
It's incredible. She takes virtue ethics, the philosophy that focuses on the moral character and pure intentions of the person acting, and completely inverts it to serve her utilitarian goals.
She does.
She looks Zina in the eye and essentially says, you aren't a gold digger, Zina. You are a savior taking on a heavy burden for love.
It's masterful manipulation.
But I have to ask, does Zina's initial disgust prove that she is the only morally intact person in this entire town?
That's a great question.
Does she actually have a functioning moral compass, or is she just naive?
Well, Zina undeniably serves as the moral center of the story at this point. She possesses a conscience that the other characters, particularly her mother, have entirely amputated.
Right.
But Dostoevsky isn't interested in simple heroes and villains. He is brilliant at demonstrating how incredibly fragile a moral compass can be when subjected to immense targeted pressure and brilliant rationalization.
And for you listening, I think this is a profound moment of reflection.
Absolutely.
Think about how easily we can rationalize our own bad behavior. How quickly do we excuse our own little deceptions, our compromises, or our ruthless moments if we tell ourselves it's for the greater good?
It happens all the time.
If we reframe our selfishness or ambition as a necessary step towards some ultimately positive outcome, we can justify almost anything to ourselves.
We all have a little bit of Maria's logic whispering in our ear when things get difficult.
Exactly. And Maria's relentless grinding pressure eventually works. She wears Zina down with this twisted moral calculus.
Zina agrees.
The plot is officially in motion.
But Maria isn't operating in a vacuum. She doesn't have total control of the board.
No, she doesn't.
The other sharks in the water start to smell blood.
The rival women of Mordasov, they are always watching.
Always. And we are approaching the climax of the story now, and it unfolds like a masterclass in covert social warfare.
Word starts leaking out about what Maria is attempting, right?
Yes. The rivals Natalia, the sugar thief, and another prominent woman named Sophia, the wife of a colonel, they realize Maria is about to secure the ultimate prize and elevate herself permanently out of their reach.
So they try to intervene.
They try to disrupt the machinery, but Maria outmaneuvers them flawlessly. She blocks their access, distracts them, and manages to get the prince completely alone with Zina.
And it works. The prince, utterly charmed by Zina's beauty and moved by her singing, actually proposes to her.
It seems like a total unmitigated victory. Checkmate.
Maria has secured the future.
But there's a wild card on the board. Pavel. He is a crucial, deeply fascinating player in this psychological drama.
Who is he, exactly?
He is a distant relative of the prince, and his entanglement in this mess is highly personal because he actually wants to marry Zina himself.
Oh, wow.
He had proposed to her previously, but Zina rejected him partly because her heart was still with the poor teacher, but largely because she saw right through him.
She knew he was a self-serving opportunist.
Exactly. So Pavel is standing in the shadows watching this all unfold. He sees the prince propose to Zina. He sees Maria glowing with triumph.
And he realizes his own chances are evaporating.
Right. His chance of securing Zina, and by extension, a piece of the prince's influence, is gone. So he bides his time. He waits for his moment to strike.
And his moment arrives perfectly, doesn't it?
It does. It arrives when the prince, completely exhausted by all the excitement and emotion of the proposal, lies down in a back room to take a nap.
This nap is the hinge upon which the entire novella turns.
Pavel sneaks into the bedroom. He waits until the prince wakes up, groggy, disoriented, and confused.
And Pavel initiates what has to be one of the most brilliant, diabolical conversations in 19th century literature.
It's chilling.
He sits down, and casually convinces the senile old man that the entire proposal, the beautiful singing, the romantic tension, the promise of marriage to Zina was nothing but a vivid dream.
The mechanics of what Pavel does here are staggering. He is directly attacking the prince's epistemology.
Okay, unpack epistemology for us in this context. Because it's not just lying, right? It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. Epistemology is the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature of knowledge itself.
Right.
It asks, how do we know what we know? How do we differentiate between truth, belief, and illusion?
So how does that apply to Pavel and the prince?
Well, in our daily lives, our epistemology relies heavily on a feedback loop with the external world and other people. We trust our senses, but we also rely on others to validate our reality.
If I see a fire, I look at you to see if you see the fire too.
Exactly. Pavel doesn't just tell a lie. He actively dismantles the prince's epistemological foundation. He severs that feedback loop entirely.
So how does he actually do it mechanically? How do you convince a man that a massive life event didn't just happen?
Pavel weaponizes the prince's own deepest fears against him. He knows the prince's grip on reality is incredibly fragile.
Because he has a terrible memory.
Right. He gets confused easily, and he is highly prone to vivid, lingering fantasies. Furthermore, Pavel knows that the prince lives in absolute terror of being sent back to an insane asylum by his greedy relative.
No, that's right.
So Pavel uses this. Dostoevsky provides this brilliant setup earlier in the day. The prince's carriage had actually flipped over on the way to town.
It's a real physical, traumatic event.
Yes. And Pavel casually tells the prince, no, your carriage didn't flip. You fell asleep and dreamed that.
And because the prince is already disoriented from his nap, he doubts himself. He thinks, did it flip? Maybe I did dream it.
Exactly. Pavel establishes a baseline of self-doubt. And once the prince concedes that the carriage accident might have been a dream, Pavel drives the knife in.
He goes for the proposal.
He says, and that incredibly unlikely proposal to the beautiful young Zina, a girl half your age. You dreamed that too. It was just a fantasy brought on by indigestion.
It is the absolute textbook definition of gaslighting.
It truly is.
And it works because Pavel frames trusting his own memory as a symptom of madness.
Pavel is essentially saying, if you go out there and insist this proposal is real, everyone will think you finally lost your mind and they will lock you up.
He makes the prince's reality completely dependent on Pavel as the external narrator. He strips the prince of his right to his own mind.
It's a devastating manipulation. The prince accepts Pavel's version of reality purely as a survival mechanism to avoid seeming insane.
But the dark theatrical comedy of this sequence is just incredible.
It's so funny in a really dark way.
The prince, now entirely convinced it was all a dream, adjusts his wig, walks out of the bedroom, and rejoins the party guests in the main living room.
Everyone is there.
Maria, Zina, Natalia, Sophia, everyone is there, buzzing with the tension of what just happened. And the prince smiles and says, ladies, I just had the most amazing, vivid dream.
And he proceeds to recount the entire proposal blow by blow.
And crucially, he includes everything Maria had said to him in private beforehand.
Yes, because earlier, while Maria was buttering him up and manipulating him toward the proposal, she had been ruthlessly trash-talking all her social rivals to him.
And the prince, thinking it's just a hilarious, harmless dream, repeats it all to the room.
He looks right at Natalia and says, and in my dreams, someone told me that you steal sugar.
He calls someone else a barrel. He airs out every single piece of dirty laundry.
All of Maria's vicious gossip, all her secret ammunition that she spent years hoarding, is suddenly broadcast to the entire room under the guise of this dream.
It is the ultimate philosophical irony. The truth accidentally spills out entirely under the guise of an illusion.
Maria spent her entire life meticulously controlling reality, guarding secrets to maintain power, and her entire empire is dismantled in 5 minutes by a senile old man who doesn't even realize he's telling the truth.
It is a total collision of truth, illusion, manipulation, and consequence. The facade completely shatters right there in the living room.
The polite veneer vanishes.
And this leads directly to the collapse of Maria's grand design.
Because the sheer weight of the tension finally breaks the one character who still has a functioning conscience.
Zina.
Right. Zina is standing there watching this absolute circus unfold. She sees the rival women starting to snap at each other.
She sees the old prince confused and babbling about sugar.
She sees her mother desperately, terrifyingly trying to hold the lie together and steer the conversation, and Zina simply snaps.
She cannot bear the sheer weight of the deception anymore. The utilitarian rationalization collapses entirely.
Zina steps forward. in front of the entire town, and she confesses the whole plot to the prince.
She voluntarily strips away all the illusions. She looks at this broken man and admits that they were deceiving him.
She tells him that the proposal was real, but that their intentions were entirely mercenary. They wanted his money, they wanted his title, and they were waiting for him to die.
And the reaction from the town is vicious. Because now that the illusion of the prince's dignity has been officially punctured, the rival women turn on him like a pack of starved wolves.
They ruthlessly attack him.
The politeness evaporates instantly. They mock him to his face. They point out his fake hair. They laugh at his false teeth. They ridicule his fake leg. They tear him apart psychologically.
It's a brutal, ugly unmasking of society. Dostoevsky strips away the etiquette to show the sheer cruelty underneath.
The townspeople are punishing the prince for forcing them to maintain the illusion in the first place.
The prince is absolutely devastated. He is crushed. Not just by the revelation of Maria's plot, but by the sheer, unvarnished viciousness of the people he genuinely thought respected him.
And amidst all this screaming, mocking, and chaos, he looks at Zina. He realizes that she is the only person in the entire room who told him the truth.
And she did it to her own severe detriment.
He calls her the only virtuous person there.
It's a profound moment of clarity for him. He recognizes her moral integrity. Even though she was a participant in the plot, she had the profound courage to destroy it and face the consequences.
So he leaves Mordassov immediately. He flees the town, and shortly after, the text reveals that the sheer stress, the humiliation, and the shock of the event entirely destroy his already fragile health.
He quickly dies from a combination of stomach and brain inflammation.
The physical collapse, perfectly mirroring the psychological one. His artificial self was shattered, and his physical self followed.
And the aftermath for Mordassov is severe. Maria Alexandrovna is completely ruined.
The entire town blames her for the scandal.
For the public embarrassment and ultimately for the prince's death. She becomes an absolute pariah.
Her carefully constructed social empire turns to dust overnight.
She is forced to sell all her properties at a loss, pack up her life, and flee the town in total disgrace.
And what of Zina? Her grand utilitarian sacrifice for love.
Zina suffers the most tragic loss of all. The poor teacher, the man she truly loved, the man she compromised her soul to save, succumbs to his illness and dies anyway.
The utilitarian plot failed catastrophically, and she lost absolutely everything. Her reputation, her lover, her future.
Now, if the story ended right there, it would be a very neat, classic moral fable.
The wicked are punished, the corrupt society is exposed, and the virtuous suffer but maintain their immortal soul.
Exactly. But Dostoevsky doesn't do neat moral fables.
He really doesn't.
He doesn't stop there. He includes a striking epilogue that completely upends our expectations and forces us to rethink everything we just analyzed.
This epilogue is where Dostoevsky's profound cynicism regarding human society really solidifies. He refuses to give us the comforting ethical resolution we crave.
So the story jumps forward several years. We are following Pavel.
Right, the guy who gaslit the prince, the guy who orchestrated the collapse of the dream.
Pavel hasn't done well for himself. He failed to get the prestigious government job he wanted in St. Petersburg, his career stalled out, and he never found love or success.
He's a bitter, mediocre man traveling for minor work.
One day, his travels take him to a distant, wealthy province, and he attends a high society ball.
And who does he see holding court at this ball?
Zina.
He sees Zina. But she isn't a disgraced, tragic exile weeping over her lost love. She is now the incredibly powerful, vastly wealthy, and deeply respected wife of the governor of this new province.
She is the undisputed queen of this new society.
And standing right next to her, completely back in her element, practically glowing with authority, is Maria Alexandrovna.
Pavel approaches them. Perhaps he expects some acknowledgement of their shared history.
Some nod to the massive drama in Mordassov.
Maybe even a bit of lingering animosity.
But Maria looks right through him. She looks at him as if he is a piece of furniture.
She completely ignores him, freezing him out with the absolute, unshakable authority of a woman who has definitively won the game.
Pavel leaves the party totally humiliated, fading into obscurity, and the story ends.
It is a chilling, breathtaking conclusion.
It really is. And it makes me want to push back on the entire moral structure of what we've been talking about.
What is Dostoevsky actually saying here?
Yeah, does this mean he believes virtue doesn't matter at all? Is he saying that ruthless pragmatism, manipulation, and the will to power will always inevitably win in the real world?
It's a highly sophisticated, deeply uncomfortable point Dostoevsky is making. He isn't saying that internal virtue doesn't matter. Zina undeniably saved her soul in Mordassov by confessing.
She refused to build her life on a foundational lie that would have corrupted her forever.
But Dostoevsky is actively acknowledging the unfairness of the universe, and specifically the cynical mechanics of human society.
The inner contradictions of how we actually live.
Exactly. Zina kept her soul, yes. But look at the practical outcome. She still ended up living the exact life her manipulative mother designed for her from the very beginning.
She is married to a powerful, wealthy, older man. She's at the pinnacle of society.
Maria's specific methods failed catastrophically in Mordassov, but her underlying philosophy that power, wealth, and status are the ultimate goals, and that they can be achieved through strategic, ruthless positioning was ultimately validated by the world they live in.
Maria lost a battle, but she unequivocally won the war. She got exactly what she wanted.
It forces us as readers, and you as listeners, to look directly into that inner ugliness of human nature without looking away.
Because as consumers of stories, we want the bad guy to be punished and stay punished. We desperately want the world to be fair. We want karma.
But Dostoevsky challenges us to look around, look at the Marias and the Pavels in our own world, in our own institutions.
He forces us to recognize that society very rarely operates as a meritocracy of virtue.
It operates as an ecosystem that often actively selects for and rewards the very traits we claim to despise in public.
Deception, manipulation, and the relentless hoarding of power.
It is an ecosystem where the ability to wear the mask effectively is far more valuable than what lies beneath it.
Wow. Okay, so to summarize this incredible journey we've been on today, we started with Dostoevsky, emerging from the horrors of a Siberian prison, choosing not to write about existential despair, but instead channeling his genius into exposing the toxic, polite social hierarchy of a small town called Mordassov.
We examined Maria Alexandrovna, the architect of social tyranny. We looked at how she embodied the will to power, hoarding authentic human flaws to build an empire of fear disguised as etiquette.
We looked at the tragic, absurd figure of Prince K, the artificial man held together by corsets, makeup, and the desperate illusions of those who wanted his wealth.
He forced us to ask the Ship-Theseus question about human identity. Where does the self truly reside when everything is a performance?
We navigated the intense moral calculus of Zina's dilemma, watching pure virtue ethics collide with a weaponized, gaslighting version of utilitarianism, pushing us to question how easily we rationalize our own compromises for the greater good.
We witnessed the brilliant, terrifying manipulation of reality itself, as Pavel attacked a man's epistemology, convincing him that his own life was just a dream, which accidentally unleashed the bitter truth in the process.
And finally, we confronted Dostoevsky's cynical, brilliant epilogue, where the facade collapses, lives are lost, yet the architects of manipulation ultimately rise right back to the top, rewarded by a society that values power over truth.
It is a heavy, darkly hilarious, and deeply unsettling reflection on how we interact with each other every single day.
Which brings us back to that tension between truth and illusion we discussed at the very beginning. Society rarely gives us clear answers or obvious villains.
It gives us a muddy, complex reflection of our own desires, our own fears, and our own compromises. And I'd like to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on the profound questions Dostoevsky raises.
Let's hear it.
The prince covered his decaying, failing body with wigs, false teeth, corsets, and heavy makeup simply to be accepted by society, to maintain the illusion of who he used to be. But Maria, Pavel, and the polite townspeople of Mordassov covered their decaying morals with elegant etiquette, poetry readings, and manufactured outrage. If you were stripped of all your social wigs and corsets, the impressive job titles, the polite lies you tell every day to avoid conflict, the grand, noble justifications you tell yourself for the selfish things you do, what kind of truth would be left underneath? If the mask was pulled away right now, who are you in the drawing room of Mordassov?
That is a question that will definitely stick with you long after this is over. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the philosophy and the dark comedy of Dostoevsky's Uncle's Dream. Keep questioning the masks around you, and we'll catch you next time.